but
I have
never
one.
happened.
I have one.
You have. And yeah, after the talk, obviously we can stay around, enjoy beer, networking, having fun, and that's it. Give it up for Lukáš.
First of all,
Yeah. 1 second.
yeah, that's not going to work. I'm going to be moving a lot either way. So.
That's gonna be a lot of work then.
That's
yeah.
fine. I'll switch to them.
Good.
You okay there?
You can start.
Alright.
About the night shift?
Sorry? Hang on. No, I don't care. Screw it. First of all, cheers. Second of all, I was asked 2 days ago to attend. Yeah, this is starting beautifully. To attend this event and present something about Python weekends. Now, the reason why I was asked is yeah, go on. The reason why I was asked was because we are starting a new batch of events this year. We had our let's call it a trial run in Bratislava a couple of months ago, and we figured that with our new members to our community team, we are ready to sort of spread our wings and try to present as much as possible to attract more people. So for those of you who don't know, Python Weekend is what we call a high-intensity educational community event. Why it's high intensity, I'll get to that a little bit later. Why it's educational becomes obvious, and community event I don't need to explain now. The difference between this event and many other specific events trying to teach you programming and computer science and things like that is this one is organized by engineers. And the reason why it's organized by engineers is because when this first started, it was sort of a clever way to attract people into the company, right? So attract new developers looking for talent, and that was, that was the original idea. It's usually organized throughout the weekend, Friday to Sunday, 15-minute presentation about a certain topic, and then 2 hours of programming per that topic, which means that you, as an attendee, you are actually required to do some work, unlike conferences and things like that. The thing that you are building, or ultimately, programming throughout the weekend, is sort of a prototype of our core technology that we, that we are proud about, which is basically a virtual interlining search engine on top of flights data. Of course, there's networking, food, and drinks, and then another drinks, and it sort of continues unequivocally. These are, I guess, the only iterations over time that are worth mentioning. The first idea in 2016 by our community team was to call it pythonmaster.qe.com, which lasted for about 2 hours, because then our CTO came and said, well, that's a bit shit, so let's just rename it to something that actually sounds interesting. And then the guys sort of went through their ideas, and about 2 hours later they came up with Python Weekend at the time, because there was no plan to go international with it. And the entry task for attendance was ready that day as well. We went international in 2018, or maybe even at the end of 2017, but the domain name, as far as I can tell, was registered 2018, so I didn't bother to check further. But these are the only changes made to the event since it started, right? So it's been the same event, the same topics, the same general idea. I'm going to go through some pictures and tell you something about each event. This is the first Python weekend that ever happened. You may recognize the venue. I don't, because I wasn't there, and I have no idea where this took place. What I do recognize, the only thing I actually do recognize is the mentors. These are the OGs. And the infamous Marcus chair from IKEA, all over the place, which I had one of those at the time as well. So that haunts me to this day, the memories. Yeah, so first iteration, couple of people, nothing too big. A year later, different venue, still no idea, no Marcus chairs this time, but you can see that we kind of made things better. There's a banner, right? There's a proper banner. Smart people want it. I don't know what happened to that banner. If there were community members here, I would ask, because I love that banner. But same mentors, same slides. This is already a 5th iteration. So we went through 5 iterations only in Brno during that 1 year. This is the slide that's on the picture. There is still Python master for some reason in there. No idea what happened there. Old new task for this weekend. There were some small iterations on the task. I'm going to be talking about the task in a second. As I alluded to earlier, 15 to 20 minute slides, 2 to 3 hours hacking. Back then, there was not as many topics as there is now, so they could have been a little more flexible with their time. The most important thing is this is not a slideshow. You will actually be programming as attendees, something that sometimes scares people for whatever reason. This was the breaking point. I skipped through 2018 because it was basically small iterations. 2019, that was the peak of Python weekend. We did the most we did the most extraordinary events in many countries. This was already like going international. This is in Bratislava in a hackerspace that doesn't exist anymore because of Corona, unfortunately. But we were able to get into some really nice venues and people had fun. But this year was special. This year we actually tried different kind of things. So there was one specific Python weekend where we decided we would, instead of doing just presentations and then wait for people to catch on, we would actually designate some time at the end of their programming time to kind of go through and write the thing they were supposed to write from scratch live during the event, to sort of get them into the mood where they would not just give up, because at the time we sort of increased our requirements and people started giving up really fast, because still our goal was to hire people, and our requirements for hiring were going up and up and up. So these 2 pictures, this is one picture and this is another picture. These are 2 Python weekends, different mentors, different attendees, a different venue, but these 2 pictures were taken at the same time. Now, how that could be? Well, we went a little bit crazy and we've decided, do you know what, like let's just try to organize one Python weekend in 3 cities at the same time. And we did that. First of all, we wanted to do Bratislava and Prague at the same time, and then I came in, all guns blazing, and said, why don't we do also Ljubljana? So, and I argued, and I actually remember this, my argument was, well, if you're scaling from 1 to 2, that's twice as complex, but if you go from 2 to 3, that's only 1/3 as complex, so it's easier to scale from 2 to 3, which somehow got through, and we were able to do it. But during this time, we also, there's a proof, we organized a Zoom call with the other venues, and after it's not working, we finally were able to connect with other people. But during this year, we also tried a couple different things. The mentors became very comfortable in that environment. They became comfortable presenting, which is very difficult considering they're developers, right? So they managed to sort of get through their sometimes issues presenting live, and they found their own ways. One of the ways, of course, find vintage memes, which he was talking about browser compatibility. I have no idea. And we somehow figured out what is the best level of engagement during the event so that people wouldn't be annoyed. And that worked quite well. We got some nice responses. So that was the history. Now I'm going to be talking about the point. And the point is the great filter, which is the entry task. Now, why is the entry task the point? Because for us to be able to hire smart people or the people we actually want, we need to be able to filter out those that don't really go well with our way of working, if that makes any sense, right? And what we wanted, even though we weren't formally, we weren't saying that formally, but what we wanted was people who are able to solve non-trivial problems using Python rather than, oh, this guy is good with Python language, so and he knows standard library and therefore he's got skills. So we hire them based on those skills. No, we throw a problem at them, which is non-trivial, which means you cannot Google it. And if they solve the problem, no matter how, like if they figure out how to solve the problem and make some decisions which weren't specified, they're great. Now this is from the first iteration of Python Weekend by Martin, who's one of the OGs who organized the first and subsequent iterations over the years. And this is basically the same entry task we use still today. And that's because the problem is non-trivial, it still works, people still have troubles with it, and it is very similar to what we do in our core product. For those of you who don't understand Czech, basically it's a proposition to make entry task deal with flight combinations. So you get a list of flights, and now you need to search for combinations between those flights. Go from A to B based on your input, and that hasn't changed. I mean, this is this is the original, and what you see here. So these are the flights, and then I don't think there's any some output commentary, like nothing too complicated. And you, as a potential attendee, you would send your solution via an email to a person who would go through your solution and evaluate it based on certain criteria that we agreed on before and give you feedback, which is very important, because when I give you feedback and you write to me the next hour that you have a new version, I'm much more likely to consider you for actually attending this than someone who doesn't care. Right? So these are the only requirements. No funny distributions, no conda, no PyPy, no craziness like that. That's because I want to be able to run it on my own laptop without installing everything. That's more laziness than anything else. Correctly formatted output. It used to be that we would feed the output from your program into some sort of a testing suite, which would go through the results and compare them and do all kinds of crazy stuff. We don't do that anymore because we've iterated over the assignment, and now that it is actually non-trivial and it actually depends on the way you actually look at it, you cannot get the same result as anyone else. It is very unlikely that you get the same result as anybody else. Standard library only. Don't install any requirements. You write your own algorithms. Right? That's the point. If you're unable to come up with a simple search algorithm, and when I say come up, that's usually Google, right? It's like, well, how to do search? Oh, there's these algorithms that you got the freaking what are they called? DFS, BFS, whatever. You should be able to write those, like, and then readme with instructions. Some people tend to write packages, some people tend to write simple scripts. If they cannot present their work in a way of readme, then probably won't be very good with documentation and not only writing but also reading. Right? So that's the That's the great filter, and it is great as a filter because usually we get around 300 signups. Out of those, only 40 submissions, and out of those 40 submissions, under 10 are actually in a state where we consider them as valid for attendance, and the rest is given the feedback. And the feedback usually goes something like, why haven't you used this standard library feature which is already there, and you tried to write something that I can break in like 5 tries? And usually, those people who actually respond and send another version, it is usually better, and we accept those. But the idea that you just send something that you think works and then do not respond to emails, it's just, I don't know, we don't want that, right? So we want engagement and some sort of proficiency. I mean, it doesn't have to be too complicated. Of course, the most frequent issues with these tasks are what's in requirements. So not using standard library, right? Like, I will guarantee you, if you are working on a CLI application and you don't use something like Parse, you can use Click, but if you're limited by standard library, if you don't use Parse, I can guarantee you I will break your application under 10 tries, right? Because you will not be able to handle all of the edge cases. And I already know what those edge cases are because people have provided me with a bunch of them during these attempts. People were applying additional restrictions. If I say return all of the combinations, and they will return only combinations with 1 layover, I'm going to assume they inserted that either because they didn't know how to write the algorithm to cover all the cases, or they just assumed that no user would ever, in the whole world, would want more than 1 layover. Unless you're traveling around the world, of course. So that already, that is not just a wrong assumption, it also doesn't work in real world. Wrong output. What we specified as an output before, it used to be something that is parsable by another program, and we didn't really care. It could have been a CSV if the format was nice. Now it's JSON, and I will actually show you the format. So this is the new task. It's a lot longer. And this is what the format looks like. So that's pretty self-explanatory. How many times do you think someone, at the end of all of this, which could have been like 20,000 lines of this, appended a message saying how many results there were? Just printed it out.
2.
It was more than 2.
That's 3 then.
Yeah, that is more than 2. Yes. Yeah, it was around 6 or 7. Out of 40, that's a lot.
It wasn't that off.
And then, of course, bad algorithm. I'm not saying wrong algorithm, because there is no such thing as a wrong algorithm. It's just bad algorithm. You try to use algorithm that is not standard, that does not exist, and it's not the fault of the people, because some of the people weren't taught in computer science. They don't know what DFS or BFS is. But Google. This is something that came in. I didn't mention it because it's not a mistake necessarily. This code worked, by the way, which is the most amazing. But I won't be happy if it looks like that either. So this is a slide that we use on Python Weekend during the first presentation, which we put at the very start to sort of go through the entry task and give like a general feedback in the room already, and say to them what was the most important. And we've been using this screenshot for over 3 years now, and it's still amazing. But in the latest iteration, we got a better one. And I'm not sure you can see this.
Actually,
Huh?
that was using NumPy, right?
Yeah, that was before we limited the
Yeah.
Was this because you limited it?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if your code can look better without this. Look, they didn't even use ilock. Look at this. Lock, for what reason? None. Get this out of the way. Right into the frying pan. I mean, okay, so this attempt, this is the new, this is the new code that I will be using from now on to to describe what's wrong with Python formatting. So they didn't use black, first of all, obviously, but I'm not sure you can sort of imply what I'm about to say. But the reason it's written this way is because instead of using proper search algorithm, they were trying to if-else every case and copy-paste the code and just replace some things. So this did work for flights that were, or for trips that were one layover or less. So that's 2 types. But unfortunately, even in the example data set, there's over 700 flights, and many of them have over 14 layovers on one route. So obviously it didn't work. But isn't this beautiful somehow? It looks like, how did they make it look like HTML? I don't understand. Wonderful. Okay, so it's, after some time preparing this, I realized there's no Python, so let's just go through some Python so that we can just get it out of the way. What is the cost of not using standard library? If I'm writing a CLI application, right? This is probably how I start if I'm limited by the standard library. This is 14 lines of code. If I read somewhere in the assignment that my application needs to support these parameters, this is the first thing that I write, right? To just move it out of the way. Like, it's according to spec. We have listed it perfectly. The assignment is written in a very deliberate way so that this is possible to write immediately. Okay, let's go through the rest of the assignment, actually. I wonder whether you could, why is it not, Jesus Christ, this sidebar is annoying. Okay. Given flight data in the form of CSV file, prints out a structured list of all flight combinations for a selected route between airports A to B, sorted by the final price for the trip. So what you get is a list of flights. Oh, okay. Wonderful. Forgot I didn't have Wi-Fi here.
We do have a cable though.
There we go.
Very long cable.
Yeah, just don't. This is what the list of flights looks like. This was pre-generated, like these aren't real world data. No, stop. Put it back. There you go. This was a list of flights which was pre-generated. If you want to see the code that generated that, if you need to get some stuff out of your stomachs today, so I can show it to you. But otherwise, I would like to keep that a secret for now. But anyway, this is actually a list of flights that was created by pinning certain points in a 2D space, and then calculating prices based on their distance and randomizing the routes between them. There's 678 flights in this file, and there is a possibility in some specific combinations to have over seven flights per one route, if you're crazy enough. So that is the example. If I can just get back for a moment. There are some search restrictions. One of them is that the layover time should not be shorter than 1 hour and longer than 6 hours, because that would actually piss the users off. Now here's the thing. should not be less and more, how would you write that? Like if it was a Python condition. Would you put less or less and equal? And why? I can give you, how much time do I have? None. Very well. I'll give you 1 more minute.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay, if I'm writing a Python code, just any Python code, and I'm trying to express that the layover period on some airport between 2 flights should not be less than 1 hour or more than 6 hours. Into that condition, there's probably going to be some time delta calculated. What's the expression? What's the operator? Is it less than, or is it less or equal than? In this case,
Less or equal, it should not be.
huh?
I think equal, because there is no condition.
With
not-
the equal.
With the equal. Yes.
Uh huh. Yeah. How many people do you think they would they were able to sort of comprehend that and write that in?
2.
5.
How?
Still right.
0.
Is it those 6 you mentioned before?
It's about 50-50 actually.
Oh.
So that was not a mistake. It was deliberately written in this way to confuse people. Because now, now if you read this and I don't say anything else, you need to make a decision as a developer, right? So imagine some sort of a business request comes in like this, and now you need to write it. How do you write it? Well, you need to make a decision. Right?
Fix it later.
Sorry?
And fix it later.
Yes, exactly. Wait for the feedback, which will be given. So there's no penalty. No repeating airports in the same trip, because A to B to A to C is just A to C. And then the output is sorted by the final price. Does that sound difficult to do? For those of you who actually write Python. It does not when I say it like this, but for some reason, people on the event are giving me the motion when I just read it out loud for them, after they've already completely implemented it.
Can you repeat the part about distributing drinks?
Oh, I will get to that.
That might be very well connected to that.
Yeah. Well, repeat, I didn't say anything about distributed drinks right now, so far. And there's also an example, which I mean, what else? Yeah, there's a full specification of the output. It's a JSON, and these are the fields. And then these are the stuff that we look for. What if I input some garbage that doesn't exist? Like, how do you handle that? There's nothing in the spec that tells you what to do, so you need to make a decision. Overall code structure, I mean, you've seen the examples of that, how well that went. Usage of standard library, I will get to this in a very next slide because that is very important. And code readability, like overall, like, are my eyes going to fall out of their sockets while giving feedback? Requirements and restrictions, README file, already told that, and examples, and that's it. So if you take a time which is probably longer than 2 minutes to read it, you should be able to at least have some plan. Now, speaking of that plan, how do you implement a search algorithm? What is the requirement of any search algorithm, like, generally? And I'm assuming there are some people who have been to computer science classes, so I'm just scanning who looks like they've been.
You mean the output is ordered?
No, I'm not asking about the output. I'm asking generally. When I'm writing a search engine, what is the only overall requirement for my search engine to work?
The performance.
Did it find something?
Huh?
Did it find something?
Yes, that would be a great output result. But no, one requirement is that my data I'm performing the search on need to be in a certain data structure for that algorithm to work properly. Anyway, right? Now, for those of you who have been to computer science class, you know that those data structures are called graphs for DFS and stuff like that. They're usually graphs. So how do you export data from CSV and fill in a graph of routes? I'm not asking for actual code. You don't have to like, dictate the code to me. It's just, how would you do it? You have a CSV file. So how do you parse a CSV file? How do you save all the data from the CSV file? And how do you change them in order to create something that resembles a graph that I can then perform my DFS on?
Probably use dictionaries.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
You're making this guy very mad.
Actually,
yeah, I would go
am
for
from
dictionaries
physics,
first, but when I did that,
Uh-huh.
when you talking about graphs, I'm just thinking about vectors, actually, which are like, say, directed lines, kind of.
Do we have a vector in Python?
It's called nowadays.
There's just, I don't know, I think I just.
I mean, you
class
can make
describing that vector. The vectors are nicely described in mathematics. Which is
Okay, what do you need to describe a graph?
nodes and edges.
Exactly, nodes and edges.
But the vectors are basically the same. So it's just from one point to another.
Yeah, you guys figure it out.
Those are vectors, actually.
Hmm? Okay, so I think something with dictionaries was the closest that we got to an answer that resembles a data structure, and that's actually very good. So what you can do is you can create a graph with where the keys are origin airports and the values are lists of destination airports for all of the flights in the dataset. And all of a sudden, when you have references to all of the airports that the connection is made of, you can perform the search. Now, how do we build such a graph? Okay, first of all, how do we parse CSV files? And this is like a Python tutorial 101 question, so.
It's a standard library.
Correct, because you cannot use anything else. Go on.
Yeah. So there we go. The CSV parse.
Uh-huh.
Look at CSV documentation and follow it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. How do I freaking parse a CSV file? Well, there's a CSV module from in the standard library, and the CSV module has an object called reader, or there are many objects called readers for different purposes. One of them is dict reader, which will read the CSV file, export it into a dictionary or dictionary-like structure. It doesn't have to be dictionary precisely, because what it could be a default dict. Now what a default dict is, it's also in the standard library. If you haven't looked at the collections module, which is probably the most amazing module in Python in the standard library ever, the default dict assumes data type and default value of a key in a dictionary that doesn't exist. So if I try to write a value into a key in a dictionary, imagine what you want to fill your dictionary with are lists. I don't have to create an empty list specifically before I fill it. I just fill it, and it assumes it knows. Right? It's magic. It's great. And this is like what, 7, 8 to 10 lines of code, and I've already got prepared data structure for me to perform my search algorithm on. And speaking of the search algorithm, you just Google it. Right? There are so many references to so many versions of so many algorithms that are written in so many languages, there is no excuse not to Google it. And if you don't feel like Google it, just remember this thing. That's it. That's all you need, basically. And that's probably like 20 more lines of the actual algorithm and 20 more lines for all of the conditions that we imposed, like 6-hour layovers and things like that. Really easy. Okay, so assuming you've completed, any questions, by the way? Because this was Python, so now I'm accepting questions, and then just silence.
We were thinking about the Q&A at the end, but yeah.
Okay, so Friday. Assuming that you go through after 5 attempts, this is the start of the event and give off the actual vibe. It used to be that we were trying to work through at least one topic on the Friday, but that wasn't really great because people's attention span is really small in the evening, as I can see right now. And so we decided what we do is we just give feedback and do some networking and present a plan for the weekend and make sure that everyone's laptop is ready for what's coming on Saturday. Now networking, go to the city, go to some bar. Okay, then Saturday. This is where the work is actually being done. CLI application and scraping. So this is where I say we don't try to teach people Python. We try to show them how we use Python in our work. So people who present these topics are usually people who are the best suited because they are the ones who do this in their day-to-day job. Right? So if a guy comes in and starts mumbling about scraping on Python Weekend, that usually means that he is responsible for a bunch of scrapers at work. CLI application, that also could be just copied from your entry task. At this point you should already know. So the only thing is just scraping, and we need people to understand scraping because, again, it's all HTTP protocol. There is no magic that only Python can do. The only thing is how to use Python to leverage my knowledge about HTTP for me to get the data that I want. And then caching and data mangling. There is a shared cache, shared Redis instance, to which we write all of the results performed from those returned from those scrapers rather. And it is shared because why wouldn't it be? I mean, what we are building is sort of a distributed system between the laptops of each attendee. So if they can all cache their results, eventually, with enough results, they will be able to get to the cached data rather than run the scraper again, which is sort of an optimization thing. And that it's also an introduction into caching and how cookies work and things like that. Data mangling presents another problem. How the hell am I going to put the data into a cache so that anyone else can read it? Like now you need to be careful because you're just going to be writing different data structures over each other if you don't. And that's not going to work. A lot of exceptions can arise. Permanent storage and virtual interlining search. Now we introduce databases. I actually have no idea whether this is the correct order. Maybe interfaces are before. I have no idea. I forgot. But permanent storage, we introduce Postgres database, and now you're writing into an actual database, which is also shared. So the situation is the same as with cache, except this time the data stays in, and it needs to be in the correct format because it gets validated, and you get booted out if it doesn't. VI search. Now that you have data in your database, you can perform the virtual interlining search. So you can search for route combinations. What we do is we usually scrape Flixbus, RegioJet, or cp.sk in some cases. And you can combine the results from those scrapers into one itinerary, which is what we do at work. If that sounds, and you know, I just basically search all of the valid combinations for the itinerary that you try to search for. If that sounds familiar, that's because that is the entry task. So all you need to do is basically take the stupid search algorithm from your entry task and just shove it in your project. So this also tests your ability to write a code that is reusable. And you should see the faces of people when we tell them. It's like, we are not going to be explaining to you how to write a search engine. You already have a search engine, you just plug it in. And then interfaces, REST APIs, usually. The most changes between the iterations were in the interfaces. We went from Flask to Fast API because that became a standard, and that also meant that the database part needed to be sort of altered. And then there's dinner and drinks and drinks and drinks and drinks and drinks and drinks and drinks. And on Sunday after the hangover, what we do is we plug everything that we have behind a web application. So we actually build a template of front end that has all of the functionality that was implemented before, but now you have a GUI interface to interact with it. And if you plug it in, or if you've written all of the stuff before correctly, you can now plug it in and it will just work. And now you have your own instance of kiwi.com search in your laptop, or something that pretends to be kiwi.com search, of course. And then there's the good stuff, which I'm not going to be talking about, because that's the good stuff, and you need to attend to see it. So this is usually that's presented by the people who want to show off something that they've been working on recently, which is, for obvious reasons, something that I cannot talk about. We go pretty deep. People are showing what they've been working on to a degree of depth where they're actually workshopping their own ideas that aren't even in production in our company. Right? So you can see our production code, or pre-production code rather. And this can take anywhere from 3 hours to 4 hours, depending on the venue. Like if the venue lets us stay there for longer, then we will use that time. And that's the end. And we don't do anything else. There are no fun activities during this. It's just code. People are generally happy about how it goes. Here's some feedback. Yeah, about Borovička. That's sort of a meme. Whenever we organize Python Weekend in Slovakia, we drink Borovička for whatever reason, because somebody was very engaging on one of those parties. And then we usually get like 90% like full satisfaction results, and people want us to get back to them and do interviews with them and potentially hire them. Now about hiring, first of all, we are just adding to the LinkedIn meetup that's going on here, and second of all, people who attended Python Weekend in, let me see, 2018 are now working with me leading their own teams of engineers in our department. Right? So that's how potentially smart people we are able to find through the great filter, of course, and then through the engagement during the drinking parties. And the reason I was asked to come here and present this to you is because now we've already finished, we kind of converged towards the formula that works. I mean, what I presented to you during the last 4 slides, that hasn't changed for years. So what's next? We've got a new community coordinator who's overly motivated, and she's decided it would be a great time to introduce something like a theme, right? So now we have a theme. If you don't ask me, I have no idea what it means. Right? It's just it's a Christmas Python weekend. I have no idea, but now we have a theme. So instead of trying to change the formula, it's still going to be the same. It's going to be the same level of engagement, but now organizational things are going to change a bit. So we are excited about that because us engineers are not capable of figuring things like this, and hopefully this will be even more fun, and it will direct us towards even more engagement, even better future, even more events and stuff like that. That's it. I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And now the Q&A session
I have a
starts.
first question.
That will come very, very. Give it a 5 minutes. We don't think we have many questions. I will start. So, given that you've got all this hoops and loops going through, what's the experience level you usually get in the talent you hire from this event?
If you're able to do everything, if you're able to follow along and do everything that we present to you with a certain level of like self-sufficiency, and if you figure things out by yourself, you can expect to be, you can expect the hiring process to be sped up for you for junior position. You wouldn't be required to do any sort of entry task for a junior position whilst applying for the job. For meteor positions, that's a little bit, we expect a little bit more than this.
Yeah, but this is, as a company, you expect that the people that you get out of this will be more on the junior level. This is not the senior level pipeline.
These are prerequisites for junior level.
Good.
At least in my team. I don't know about any other teams. There have been other teams that introduced Python weekends on their own, and I have no recollection, or it wasn't involved at all, so I have no idea what they did. But some departments organize their own Python weekends. They have different tasks, different everything, and but they don't do it anymore. I wonder why.
A bit of a not the most pleasant question, but do you have people that go through it, are very good, but they don't want to get hired? They just went there for fun.
Yeah. But here's the thing: they don't know it's fun. Because have you seen our website? Like,
yeah, that was not fun.
no, exactly. Just and it's not even .com. Like, what do you do? Like, does this website look like fun?
As I said.
Like, I mean, okay, I get it. The attendance is free, but like, right? I mean, task, whatever, and then mentors, and that's it. Like, this doesn't look like fun. So people don't generally expect for it to be fun. They expect that they will actually learn something. Little do they know. They usually won't.
Do we have any other questions?
Yes. So there was some code we all laughed at.
Yes.
If I'm just starting out with Python and I have no idea why everybody's laughing, where would I find out what's so funny?
You can, the best, I think the best Python courses for beginners are on a website called talkpython.fm by a guy called Michael Kennedy, who like 5 or 6 years ago, he started a Kickstarter with, he had a Python, I don't know if he had a Python podcast back then, but he has a Python podcast, and he launched off a Kickstarter with what I immediately got into, because back then I wasn't, I wasn't writing Python. I was still on C and things from school. So that's how I learned from his courses. And the reason I was attracted to his courses specifically was because of the way how well produced they were. Like, there was obviously some like huge production value going into it, whether that's just him being like super careful about what he presents. I have no idea. I talked to him on just on one occasion, but that's where I would go. Talkpython.fm / courses or something. They're not expensive, but you will get what you pay for. And he also talks about formatting and things like that. You will learn that as you go along. Like, you will know what code looks shit if you can't. If you need to read one line 3 times,
Cool, thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Maybe. They are the standard libraries, but they are not changing much. But I assume that those are at least Python 3, something like 6, or maybe more.
Sorry?
Python 3 or 6, not 6, or something more higher. not that good.
Oh, you mean like the minimal requirement?
Yeah, because
Uh,
I don't assume that anybody is much using Python 2.
3.7, I would say.
Yeah.
There are some nice things in 3.7. But basically anything that runs on 3.9 is fine.
Cool. Good. Any more
The
questions?
silence is good.
Peter, do we have
But
any
go-
online
but go ahead.
questions?
But go ahead.
Astonished.
Do we have actually anyone online?
Somebody is watching online. Somebody just joined.
They may have,
Good timing.
they may have just
I
forgotten.
have no idea where such people would ask questions. There's nobody asking questions on YouTube.
You need to allow these super chats and stuff.
Ah, right, the Python on defense. Anyway, so
That sounds like a business though.
yeah, well, we're mentioning the online part because what we try to do is the hybrid model where we try to stream as well. We'll see how it goes, given the situations where we were past years, well, 2 years at least. We noticed that we've got some online people coming from different countries, so we try to keep it going there. Anyway, thank you very much, Lukasz, for your great talk. And from my side, a few last things before we go, for either more beer and networking or home. Don't forget that if you're going for loo or home, to use the first door, not to go through the second part. B, we're always looking for someone to do job like this, to present. So if you are interested in talking publicly, please do join. Moses, you did before the talk, so it's one. We have a few other, Peter used to do some talks long time ago, so if you feel like joining into the madness, please do. If you feel like helping organizing and finding people, like people that like to present, join us and talk to us. Anyway,
It looks like it is technically possible to stream the event from here, so if anybody wants to handle the camera next time or
Handle me next time.
You mean
just
there is
next
any
time.
next time?
today we learned a valuable
See how
lesson
it's done.
that we will use a table here so the person will not move around.
I warned you. Just leave it on the slides. Why would you even?
The slides are streamed.
Maybe we'll zoom out the camera more.
There's too much work. Anyway, thank you very much for attending, and yeah, let's have a beer and enjoy the time here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Skip one.
Oh, and by the way, I have some
What?
horrible.
Let's have an idea. A lightning, maybe.
Yeah, do we have a lightning talk?
Or dogs.
I don't. Well, then
Well, now you do.
I subconsciously accepted, even before I announced lightning talks, that there will be none. So maybe next time. Beer time or well, networking time. Thank you. And for us, the
Yay!